Okay, welcome everybody. We will start with short presentations by each of our guests, which will be followed by a conversation, opening some questions that raised to me and that I think might be interesting for all of us in relation to gender in animation and its role in the industry. So I would ask Waltraud to start.
Thanks for coming. I just bought some catalogs from this year. This year means from 2019. We were focusing on China. If you're interested in what we were screening, and here's a small flyer. Yeah, I just want. We got 10 minutes, so I want to start. As you can see, we started our festival in 2001. And still we are the only animation film festival with the focus on animated films made by women. We also accept co-productions with men, so we are a festival of inclusion. But women have to be in the central positions, and more than 50% have to be made by women. So we have done, how did we come to this idea? Since a very long time. So you can imagine how old I am. We are organizing a film festival with films made by women, but before we did it with feature films and documentaries. And yes, our focus is not so much on commercials, but more and more we also include now commissioned works. But we want to win wider audiences for animation. In Austria, we have a big focus on more on experimental animation. But yes, but we are a festival, but we also make a lot of work during the year. We see each other also as a political organization, as a platform, and we cooperate with a lot of other institutions like museums, galleries, civil society organizations. I will give you some examples afterwards. What are the main goals of us? It's just very simple, and the most important things. We want to change the imbalance in the animation world and also in the film industry. There are a lot of statistics now. What I'm happy about is because statistics make reality. If you always say there's a certain imbalance, people don't really believe you. They say everything is already better, but there are more and more reports. In Austria, we have the gender budgeting film report. It's about how fundings are given to people, and in Austria, for example, only 20% of the whole film budget went to women. So we also have to have a look not only on the numbers, how many films were supported, but also how big was the budget that went to the women. And now we have the statistic, the proof in Austria with this film gender report. So we also try to change the narrative. Still, there are not so many female characters on screen. There are surveys mainly in the United States that make statistics how many female characters, how many female speaking characters appear on the screen, and there are only 30% in the 100 top grossing films in the States, and that's really little, I think. And to be a speaking female character, it's really low. It's just you have to. The demands are you have to say one word to be a speaking character. So and they count, and it's only 30%. So it's really a shame. So we think it's important to bring the stories and the views on the world of female characters and in general of female on screen. And so we are really keen on films that create positive role models before the screen and behind the screen. So, and we also fight for equal production budgets, what's not the case now. And we believe in empowerment with animation. I'll give you some examples. Some festival impressions. We have about 4,000 visitors, and you can see a little bit of the atmosphere. It's in the opening is in the biggest cinema in Vienna, and we have talks, lectures, workshops. Here you can see this year we're focusing on China. We had an ink paint workshop, and we have artist talks. Some of artists that attended our festivals may know this. And we are cooperating with 2 galleries. We have an international forum also where we give lectures, some theoretical lectures and master classes. And yes, here you can see from this year we had a focus on independent Chinese animation. But it was quite a challenge. Not a challenge to find them, but to have them here. And because at the end the Chinese government was asking if all the films have a certificate, and of course the film didn't have. And so we were a little bit nervous that all the artists can't come, but finally we achieved everyone could be here. And it was always, I was really nervous not to provoke any difficulties for the artists, because the film were quite political, we could find. And yeah, but we achieved and had a great time. And another festival was founded in China now in Beijing, an independent animation film festival, and we were supporting them a lot. You can see a little bit of the art space. We also try, like Miu Gallery, but in a little different way, only during the festival time, to present the works also in 2 galleries. Our office is located in the Museumsquartier, you can see here. It's in the center of Vienna. And it's a real cultural space that was founded in 2002, and there are 7,000 square meters where located a lot of cultural institutions. And the Museumsquartier is offering an artist in residence program, and one of our main awards is a 3-month residency. And there are 9 studios, and all the organizations that are located there can invite people. At the beginning, we were 12, so we were we were one of the first organizations there. So there were only 12 organizations, but now we are more than 50. So, and every organization wants to invite their artists. So it's a fight for it, but we are successful to get every year, several months, and you get a live and work studio there, and €1,050 a month. They are very different studios, bigger and smaller, and you can the above one, the smaller one, and we can't offer equipment, but you are connected to 8 other artists from different disciplines, and we try to connect the artists that are having their residency with our institutions in Vienna, with the Film Academy and art universities. We just had our last artist in residence, was Rachel Goodgart. She did our trailer that will be online, I think, this week. So go on Facebook and on our webpage. It will be published, I think, this week. And we could welcome since the 26 artists will come in March. And I was calculating all in all the artists spent more than 6 years already together with us. So if we count all the months, already 6 years we were having artists in residence. And the only thing we ask is to do our trailer, but if you don't want, you don't have to. But we ask the artists to do it for the next festival, and so it's screened before ever screening, and we keep it the whole year. So everyone till now agreed. This is Moya Joubin-Paré from Canada. She was really sketching on photos. She's working in a special technique. And the trailer for 2019 was made by Marta Pajek. She was here 3 months and was working on the last part of her triptych. And now you can see her 30-second trailer. It was for a festival in 2019, but she did it during the residency in autumn 2018. No? So, sorry, yeah. No, it should start. No? Sorry, yeah. As we had the focus on China, so she has chosen to put this in the trailer. So about our activities through the year, we are cooperating with a lot of civil society organizations. Just last week, we were presenting a program together with 8 female activist organizations in the context of 16 days of activism against gender violence. We've done this for the 5th time, and it's one of our highlights because these organizations they are from different backgrounds, from women houses, Catholic women movement, refugee organizations. They propose a topic and we propose them a film, and then we present them together with their community, their clients, and the organization discuss about the film. And so we try to screen the films in other contexts to reach other audiences, and they and we are all very happy to provide them to organizations that really need these films. They are happy to have films, visual material that communicates their message, their topics in a creative way. And we also could put a program for the Ombud for Equal Treatment, and in Austria we are celebrating 40 years of law for equal treatment, and finally they did hold their festivities with this film program, and it is booked more and more, and so we have funny films in it, but it's getting bigger and bigger. We have more and more, more and more people are asking for programs that tour around. They have discovered animation to communicate their topics, and we are happy about this. And then just this program we put together for these festivities for the law of the law for equal treatment. Now it's booked for youth organizations. They want to book it for the whole year, so it's good for the artists. I think. I hope they also feel like us. The films are screened to other audiences that normally don't attend festivals or go to the cinema, and. Yeah, so but we are cooperating also with museums, like in Austria, the Albertina Museum. It's a really famous museum. We had we put together 2 programs when they had this Drawing Now exhibition about new positions of drawing in our times, and also with the Leopold Museum when they had a Oskar Kokoschka exhibition. Lizzie Hobbs has made a film about Oskar Kokoschka, and we were supporting her in the research, so we tried to connect them, and the film was included in the exhibition. And one of our highlights is also the cooperation with the Sigmund Freud Museum. You may know that Sigmund Freud has lived very long in Vienna, and there's a museum there. It's a horrible museum. It's really small, but it's the most attended museum, I think, in Vienna. There are a lot of fans coming to get the feeling where Freud has lived. Now it's under construction, but we had a 4-evening program there, cooperation with them about animation and the unconscious. And when we were planning this, it was planned to present films that deal with this topic, and there are quite a lot in animation that are talking about the unconscious there. And we wanted to invite psychoanalysts, film theorists, and the filmmaker. And when we were planning it, the directress of the museum also said, which psychoanalysts can we take? And we said, we want female psychoanalysts. And she said, oh, which one? No, I only know the man. And then, but it's our job, we always insist. And of course, there were a lot of female psychoanalysts. And it was really amazing. The talks were so interesting because even when the psychoanalysts were not in film and not in animation, they almost had the same vocabulary. So it was a thing we want to repeat when it's opened again. And we also took part in the Musica Femmine exhibition. It was a huge exhibition in Schönbrunn, at the castle where the emperor was living before. Maybe you know it. And it was an exhibition about female composers there, and they were looking for film music composed by women, and at the beginning it was the same. They said in Austria we don't have music composers and not for animation, and we could put together a program with animated films made by women and with female composers. There are not so many, but they are, and it's always the same process that at the beginning they say they aren't here. Even the Austrian Film Institute said we don't have composers for film music in Austria, but they are. And we also could sell films even to the employment office. They were looking for films about, there was an organization also that wanted to engage more female bus drivers, and we had films with female bus drivers, and so they booked these films. So there's quite funny cooperations, and we also, of course, we want to present films with feel-good films. I'm fine with my body, I'm okay, and not only films that deal with difficult topics, but also film with pleasure and yeah. And one important project we were initiating that you can see tonight at 6 is the Happiness Machine. The director of the Klangforum, which is a contemporary Austrian contemporary music orchestra, and he was contacting us and said he wants to make a film about the common good theory, a theory developed by an Austrian author, and about new ways of economy. And he said he wants to make a feature film, and he already has a male composer, and we proposed to make a film with 10 female artists with different backgrounds from different European countries, and the film in different techniques, and with female composers. And here it was the same. There are no composers, but finally there are. You can see this tonight, and Anand Elkridge is in this program with one short. Yeah, And so also we put together a program with Austrian animated films by women that goes on tour around the world. It was just in Pakistan. I haven't heard how it was because it's not quite an easy place for women, and 1 month before in Taiwan, and also at the Anima Festival in Kosovo. So we are very happy about this. So with the support of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it really tours around the world, and it's great for the Austrian filmmakers. Yeah, the next festival is in March. We focus on France, and here I have some statistic. I see I'm already much longer. There are film statistics made by the Annenberg Foundation Inclusion Initiative. You can have a look online. They are published online. They make this survey since 2007. And just a few numbers. Here it's the proof. They have taken more than 1,200 films in the States, and only 33% had a female speaking or a named character. And as I said before, speaking character means the character says one word, so it's really not a lot. And yeah, it's also the myth that films are not sold very well when they are female characters, but I think we are more than 52% in the world, and so we should have the presence on screen and behind the screen. But yes, you can see here the statistics. It hasn't become better since 2007, the presence of female characters online and on the screen. And here you can see in animation it's getting better, but not so much. And but you can make a change, hire women. It makes it better because also the Annenberg Foundation has found that if there are female directors, the percentage of women on screen is higher because there were 47% of female characters, and when there was a male director, there were 30%. And if there's a female writer, the percentage of female character is higher, but I still think it's really low, only 40% of female characters. And we really need, my appel is if you plan something, think about if the story could be told from a female point of view, if you also could tell it with a female character, and why not our stories on screen? And yeah, there would be much more to say, and thanks for listening, and yeah.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate these numbers because they're coming handy a bit later because I have some questions that maybe these statistics can also help us search the answer for. So thank you very much. Now I would ask, I will return to this later, but now I would ask Anna to please present her work.
Organize myself in time because we have 10 minutes for feminism start. So hello, thank you for coming. My name is Anand Elkridge, and I'm from Belgrade, Serbia. I'm a visual artist, animator, and director. And in a way, I'm specialized in creating plasticine dystopian worlds. And I really enjoy doing it. And I'm mostly doing stop motion animation. And what's for me crucial to my work is that animation is nowadays a powerful tool to address important social and political issues. And also I really enjoy to create female characters and tell some very serious stories through female perspective. But let's go a little bit back in time. So my career started in 2005 approximately, when I first created my first characters, evil girls. And they look like this because actually, to be honest, I just wanted to make a Barbie doll for East European market, and then something went wrong. And pretty soon, then my evil girls started to attack galleries and other art spaces just in order to make a mess and to prove their own identity, because they really think that it has to be scientifically based, especially in the downs of history. So here is the real example for history textbooks. Then, of course, I realized that I have to go a step further and not just play with some nice and cute puppets, but to build the entire universe. So I was crazy enough to build the new world of Rabbitland in a gallery space populated by a super cute pink brainless rabbits, which had democratic elections every single day. And of course, because I'm from Serbia, I always like to use this opportunity at every single presentation to thank my country for providing me such a wonderful inspiration for all my artwork. So most of the things I have in this work and the next one and previous, in a way, are real. And of course, because my characters were attacking public space, it was also important to them to have their own Facebook profiles and to communicate. And approximately at that time, I met Nikola Majduk. Yeah. And then we made our first film together, Rabbitland, and stop motion animation. And it was premiered at Berlinale, the very first festival I have ever attended. And it was super funny because when we were on the way back to the airport, they told us that we actually have to go back because we got the award. And then after it, the film was screened at more than 100 festivals, and we got many other awards. But while we are doing films is not to have my perfect CV and to show off during the presentations, but both Nico and I, we really believe that we have to use it to share the message. So just a short trailer. I guess in the next 20 seconds you would enjoy the wonderful world of Rabbitland.
Rabbitland. Rabbits are happy, and since they have no brains, just holes in their heads, nothing bad can happen to them. They are the most perfect, high-stakes. They go so far to vote at elections, which in Rabbitland take place once a day because it is well-ordered democracy. At the borders of Rabbitland, the evil girls play and they laugh at another senseless day. Happy.
Happy. I mean, it has a stronger impact on the audience when it's not just a trailer. But I guess you will have a chance to see the film, or you already saw it. And just to say it in short, that the Rabbitland was based on my personal traumatic experience of life in Serbia during the war and crisis we have. And during that period, I was questioning democracy so much. But both Nicole and I, we had that attention, not just to discuss some local story from a tiny country in the middle of the nowhere, but to address democracy nowadays, which looks more like the ritual that people are performing. And what was also very important to me, to the gender roles in the film. So the rabbits are actually gender neutral, but at the end of the film, we realized that the entire mess was organized by evil girls, which were a sort of female dictators in order to have fun, but in order also to ask us some questions. And in order to make a short break between this super stuff, political questions, that's how it looks in our studio when we are just playing with plasticine and trying to be naive and outside the real world with quite a lot of political stuff there. So after Rabbitland, but rabbits are still alive, and I'm really looking forward to activate them again, because there are a lot of topics for them, and they are just waiting to be activated. I decided to discuss through the film the next political issue, which is a story in film Untravel from 2018, a story about local patriotism, tourism, and emigration. And it was also screened at Berlinale, Sundance, qualified for Oscar and nominated for the Annie Awards. But what was the most important to me is the background. It's a super personal story, and I had difficulties actually to tell it by using my own characters, so then I decided to use Evil Girl's characters in order to help me to tell the story. And the story is that during that problematic period in Serbia, during the 90s, it was quite difficult to travel for most of the citizens because of the complex visa regime. And I was affected as well. And until the age of 20-something, 23, 24, actually I has never traveled anywhere abroad. And I was thinking that it is a sort of my fault and not a result of weird political circumstances. And during that period, I was dreaming the same dream almost every single night, that I'm traveling for the first time in my life, but then something went wrong. And then we decided to transform my dream into the film Untravel. So here is the depressive trailer.
I have been living all my life in the same room, and I had never traveled anywhere. Yet, every day I was secretly dreaming of living forever, for a perfect world called abroad.
I still have only Serbian citizenship, and it was super funny for us in the studio working on that film, because as you all know, stop motion is a super time-consuming process, and we started with the script and everything, and then quite a lot of real political events started to happen. The entire migrant crisis, and then Trump came to that brilliant idea to build the wall. So we were in a way in a problem that we were afraid that reality has a better script writer than we are. So we were actually changing the ending many times. And what would be also interesting for this discussion is that all the characters in a story are female. And usually after the screenings, when there is a Q&A, usually the first question is, and it was at the pitchings before as well, usually the first question is, well, what's going on with the male characters? And I have already prepared a catchy answer, is that all male characters left as migrant workers or died in the war. But it's just a tricky answer, but of course telling story only through a female perspective makes different perspective. And here are a few examples for how it was really nice to work in our studio. Ah, yeah, that's the view from my window in Belgrade. So I use it for set design. So if we make a fancy slideshow like this, there are quite similarities. But of course, if you want to visit Belgrade, there are some nice streets and bars and cafes as well. And yeah, so right now, I have a feeling that it is time finally for me to deal with first world problems. So I'm happy to deal with the question of economy and money. And these are the creatures, let's call them hamsters, and they are starring in the Happiness Machine project for the first time, and you could see it tonight at 6. But I'm also will use the same characters in my next short film. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now need a moment to switch the presentation. Maybe in the meantime, Anna, can I ask a question? For me, it was now that you presented like the process of from Evil Girls to the film. But for me, what was interesting when I saw the film for the first time is that like you took politics as a traditionally male domain and used the girls as the force behind it, but as you presented it now, like the evolvement of the film. First there were the evil girls, and then you set them in. Then you put the setting in the democracy, the voting. So can you just maybe tell us if that was like the politics was intentionally field that was used as a field that is male-dominated, or was it just my projection?
Well, in a way, answer is yes. But my intention from beginning was to create special puppets I would like to play with. And my puppets are not neutral. They are politically consciousness puppets that are able to address different issues. Because if you are thinking about puppets and girls and toys, I mean, it's super stupid to have toys and Barbie dolls only with makeup and kitchen. We have to have toys that are good for the real world. And real world is, of course, full of politics. And, of course, female perspective makes a different perspective on it. Yeah. So I'm making it in order to invite people playing with me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we are now ready for Marie. Yeah. Yes.
Hello. Yeah. So I don't know if it was the right way. I just made the presentation, and I'm not so used to it. But I started with a website that I co-created with Florentine Grelier. Waltraud was saying that she couldn't find, at first, female composers in Austria. It was in 2014 or something. I was writing on a website called Food Anim. And yeah. Ah, shit. Sorry. It was working. Yeah. Sorry. Well, yeah, and cameras went off somewhere. It should be working properly. That is strange. It's good. Yeah. No, let's disconnect this. Does it work now? No. Can you get out of the computer and out of the program? Okay. Maybe we restart the computer. Yeah, we restart the computer. Okay. Maybe you can talk a little bit. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So it's yeah. I was writing news and on a voluntary basis on a website, and at some point when Susie Templeton got her Oscar, and the website was run by a male teacher. Well, and it was called Food Anim, which is also a male name. And when she got her Oscar, I made the news that kind of feminist statement that we should make films and not worry whether they address to feel that they can interest anyone. And then it started with a big discussion, and all these guys I knew, they were male directors, but under pseudos. They were so angry. I think, I don't know, I cannot explain, but maybe because it was on the first page, and it was with this winning woman holding Oscar. And so it was a long discussion. They told me I was not the right feminist. The right feminists were in the 70s. I was, or many things. So I tried to avoid. And Florentine was also reading and writing in the website. And so then, and they were also questioning the guys were questioning the existence of female festivals. Why? It's unfair and everything. But then, and I think my news was also about Julie Roy saying that in Annecy she had made statistics and there was only 20% films made by women. And then 1 year later, I don't know, Marcel Jean made Annecy about women, and Florentine asked me whether I would like to help her building this website. We were, I'm not anymore a teacher, but she's still a teacher, and still we know that although there are a lot of female students, later on you cannot find them, or it's hard to find them. So does it work? No? It's still, yeah. My computer is crashing. I don't know. Yeah, so no picture. So I will try to be shorter. And what should I do?
Maybe just restart again.
Restart again. There is a special trick to restart without failure, no, isn't it? Yeah, something.
Well, there is something, okay, but there is no image.
Yeah.
Patience, it says patience.
Patience. Yeah, so Femme d'Anime is a website that allows, it's based on a voluntary basis for the women to put their, it was also inspired by great female animators that was built by an American woman, and where I had the chance to be in. And so we made this just about French animation, and it's we're still waiting. Yeah. Yeah. A bit. And you can, there are 70 profiles, and you can go through different jobs.
It serves also as a database of female professionals in animation.
Yeah. What else? I don't know. In the beginning we had to be a bit proactive to find some women to get in the database, and but it can. Yeah, we need to check the mails, and but everyone can write.
And it's still running on a voluntary base, basically.
Yeah, and it's a bit slow. I mean, yeah. but there was another initiative for this ANSI 2015, coming because Florentine and I are both a short film director and teacher, but coming more from the producer side. And yeah, so it was just complementary, because Florentine's boyfriend built architecture of the website, and we were more into web thing, yeah, and yeah, the producer were more into meetings and less in the web. We were. Yeah.
Okay. Did you want us to?
It's still, yeah.
It's still in the process.
Sorry. And then I was, I had prepared. Sorry. No, it's not. No, sorry. No. It's something else.
Do you know maybe, Anna and Waltraud, if there is such a database in your countries? Because you said this is for French, so we give you time to find the file.
No, we in Vienna now have FC Gloria. They are collecting all female filmmakers, cutters. There's a database, and you can put in yourself for free. So I think it's important to do all this to make you visible, and so there's not anymore the reason there are no women. So it really needs these databases. And in France, you also have women in animation. Les Femmes Animes, for example, and there are a lot of organizations now in different countries
that collect data on national level.
And organizations founded, main organizations are in the States, Los Angeles and New York, but a lot of countries now are founding chapters in Ireland and in Germany, and in Austria we don't have, because we are small. There's a small group, but yeah. But in the also in the general film industry, there are more and more databases about women and composers and directresses and. Yeah, so I think that's important in every discipline, not only in the film business, also for discussions in the TV. They always say women ask before the topic, and men ask when does it take place and what's about. So the organizers of discussions from TV always tell me this, that's this way around, and it's so hard to find women that want to take part in these TV discussions or be on stage. But I think, I hope it is changing now.
It's changed with time, okay.
Yeah.
I see you're ready, but maybe just, is there such a database for Serbia or for the region?
Honest, right now I think that people in Serbia in culture are more focused on corruption than feminism. But yeah, that's a good idea, and probably we should start making a database.
Okay, Marie, please.
Yeah. Well, that's just some. There have been some research. So we on the website we have a resource page, and where Tricky Women is linked to. But that was 2014, and it's in the whole cinema, and that was done by the CNC. And so I think, yeah, for me, what I see that in the beginning of the career, everything is fine, and I felt also as a young woman, I had nothing really to do with feminism so much. I don't think you feel so much problem. And then after 30, then there's a big gap yeah, so
There now, we know everywhere, more than 60%, even 70% in the film schools, in the animation film schools are women, but afterwards they disappear, and there are really a lot of research now, where do they go and why. But I think I'm hopeful there it will change now, because
yeah.
you can't ignore this anymore, I think, so I hope so.
So that on the left it's technicians, and on the right it's leaders or cadre, I don't know, just yeah, in the cinema industry, not only animation. And that was a post I made about Susie Templeton and what Julie was saying about the percentage of female films in Annecy. And that's a website, and the three here at random, we chose to present the work through a picture, which comes maybe from being director, because the producers, they have a problem being represented by one picture, but anyway. And then you can, yeah, on the left you can go through 19 jobs, like animator, director assistant, camerawoman, colorist, composer, concept artist, decorator, designer, artistic director, distributor, layout woman, editor, artist, producer, director, scriptwriter, setupper, and storyboarder. And yeah, maybe we'll add a researcher. Yeah, just and then I wanted to talk about my work, but then it's maybe too late. So I'll try to be quick. So I titled it From Workshop to Workshop. I started animation when I was a teenager in a workshop. There was a festival nearby my parents, and the head of the festival was organizing summer workshops, and I did it for 4 years. And then later I studied animation, and I made my first film, Un jour, which I chose an extract, if people haven't seen it yesterday. So this is a film I made between the RCA and Ludwigsburg, the Film Academy. It was, I made it on 3D, CGI, and I rotoscoped a picture with sand to get a nicer look. And then I went to near Clermont-Ferrand, and I made my first colored film, and it was I got the money. It was also my first really produced film with Les Films de l'Arlequin, and I wrote the story while I was pregnant, and I made the film, and I finished the film. I was again pregnant of my second child, so I can show you. Yeah, next. And in 2003, I co-founded a charity which is called the House of 1,000 Pictures. And basically to make workshops, also screenings, and mainly workshops. And also with this charity, we did for 4 editions of a tiny DIY film festival in my little town. So I took one example of the many workshops we did. This is one workshop done in prison. It's French speaking, so I'm sorry.
Depuis le temps que je patiente dans cette chambre noire, j'entends qu'on s'amuse et qu'on chante. Au bout du couloir, quelqu'un touche le violon. Et j'ai plongé vers le grand jour, j'ai vu les fanfares, les barrières et les gens autour.
Dans les premiers moments, j'ai cru qu'il fallait seulement se défendre. Mais cette place est sans issue. Je commence à comprendre. Ils ont refermé derrière moi. Ils ont eu peur que je recule.
Ils ont refermé derrière moi. Ils ont eu peur que je recule.
Je veux bien finir par la voir, cette danseuse diffuse.
Je ne veux pas trembler devant ce pantin, son nu. Je veux attraper, lier son chapeau et faire tourner comme un soleil.
Ce soir, la femme du torero tournera sur ses œuvres.
J'en ai poursuivi des fantômes, presque touché leur ballon. Baila, baila.
Baila, baila.
Aquí baila de nuevo.
Aquí baila de nuevo.
Y mataremos otros.
Y mataremos otros.
Otras vidas, otros toros.
Mataremos otros.
Venga, venga y baila.
Venga, venga y baila.
Y mataremos otros.
Y mataremos otros.
And so I didn't make short films for a very long time. Well, just workshops, but it really changed. Also, I had one project after the garden which didn't get the funding. So, and but the workshop, it really changed my way of writing. One good thing I liked in the workshop, especially with kids, was to record their voices, ask them questions and record the voices to make a documentary, because it was so fresh. And yeah, so I like to work from voices. And then many years later, the producer of The Garden, she asked me, do you have a project? There is some money to take at Arte. And I said, yeah, I can write something. And finally, Canal Plus financed it, not Arte. And I can show also an extract, if you want. It's a portrait of a man who was living in my village and who was giving away candies in the streets. Yeah, and the first time I saw him, I was with my 2 kids, and I was afraid by him, but still I took his candies, and I walked away, and a few meters later I said, my kids, don't take the candies when you're on your own. But it made me think about this guy, and I asked the village about him, so I made this movie.
Chanteur, disons qu'il a son propre style, quoi.
D'abord, quand ils ont signé Magnifica, 5000 personnes qui se levaient. Oui, voilà. Oui, c'était pas des bons enfants.
C'est génial.
Oui. Et après, j'ai chanté à Charade, après, 100 000 personnes. J'ai même des combinaisons de course. Et puis après, j'ai chanté au Bataclan à Paris.
Dès qu'il commence à faire son numéro, en fait, ça impressionne quand même un peu les gens, quoi.
Et qu'est-ce que vous lui trouvez d'extraordinaire, lui-là? Il accroche bien avec les gens qui font un peu d'artistique, dans ce qui s'est passé modestement en musique. Ça nous a intéressés par l'image qu'il a, et il y a des points communs avec nous, alors qu'il y a des gens qui doivent voir tous les jours, il y a des points communs.
Sorry, and I co-founded an animation BA course nearby Clermont-Ferrand. It's still running, but I was on a short-term contract, and I stopped. I had a project of 12-minute short films with Les Trois Ours, but we got money for writing. Yeah, it was new grants about writing short films. And we were the first project to get it. It was co-written with Hélène Marshall. And the producer, the last money we got went into the account of the company, and just before it bankrupt, which I didn't expect. And so then later I tried to apply for the grant I could as an author, but I didn't get them, and so I forgot about this project. And in 2015 we created Femme d'Annie, but also I had the visit of the Museum of Annecy to buy some. There was an exhibition around the production company Les Films de l'Arlequin, so they were buying some artworks from directors, and so that was a moment where they came in with their white gloves to buy the artworks. I was showing them my storyboards, thinking it's the most worthful thing I have, because they bought so big grants, but they were not interested because it was a printed material, and the museum, they want original artwork. And probably that led me to the project I'm now doing, which is flipbooks and exhibited in the Cinémathèque. And also it was interesting because Les Films de l'Arlequin have produced a lot of female directors, and therefore actually the museum was quite happy, because I think there's still, I don't want to go too much into the feminine approach to directing, but there are some crafts. At least it was easier for them to show original artwork, because I think more films were made directly in were easier to exhibit, because they didn't rely as much on technology. So yeah, so it was also interesting. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for this journey. I think it's a good starting point to reflect one of the issues I wanted to raise. We saw a bit the statistics of like share of women and men in animation. I did like a very quick research, and I think there's a trend that it comes that like when you have like a student film section, there's usually like 2/3 to 1/3. And when you have competition, it's between 25 and 50%. In retrospective programs, it falls down to 10% of women authors. And in feature films, it's even less. It's usually like, I don't know, 1 to 5% in programming. I would like to open the first question maybe would be, you mentioned in curating a program, like finding the names, having difficulties to also for your webpage to find information about female authors. So I think this is also in our field one of the main problems that as a curator you face, that there's like this mainstream market where like names repeat, and it's very difficult to sometimes even find resources to research outside of these markets. So the question that for me is how to address the question of what we are not seeing and why we are not seeing it in the, let's say, festival market in animation.
Maybe just I can say how we do our research for the Focus on France. We want to give an overview, and we said, are there some early works of women? And we asked some specialists, and they said, no, there's not a lot. But finally, we insisted, and now we have some names and some titles, but we don't know now what is in it. And so we are really, I hope we will know in the next days. But even specialists didn't know that there are some early works, but there are some commissioned films and some, so the names are known and the film titles, but not what is really in it. And then so we really try to know if it's worth showing it, of course, if it's of interest. But we had really to insist and not stop asking people and continue. We really need to be behind it, resistant always, because there it's all the same. In Vienna, just we have a big exhibition about Caravaggio and all this. It's the same in everywhere in the
it's the
museum.
question of canon. What gets into canon, or like historical canon? And that's why I think like this retrospective also it's important to maybe like go beyond what is in the cinematheques, for example, what's in the archives.
Very often, if there are couples, the women are not known, they are not in the credits. For example, Claire Parker is not as much known as Alexeyev. I think she's known, but yeah, they're the second one in the titles always, and very often they're even not named. Yes, if you work together in a couple, put your name also.
Yeah, that was also one of the questions for me from Anna about your experience in working in tandem, for example. But I know, like for example, with this Musica Femina exhibition about female composers that you mentioned, we were also part of the project with City of Women. What turned out in the research for the exhibition, for example, that a lot of names throughout history, it was turned and changed, so the information that it was actually a female author got lost. Yeah. And the other aspect is that a lot of times for female composers, they were also playing, but throughout the history, like the historians that were writing the books, like the information that they were actually composing as well got lost. Yeah. So it's this canonization of a work by a female author, I think, is also very problematic. Yeah. And
there's also a survey also by the Annenberg Institute where they were asking different generations about directing films, and even the women also were answering there's not the same trust as in men to work with a bigger budget. So you can watch it if you go on the Annenberg website.
Database.
Annenberg, what did I say? Foundation website. It's really surprising. Why don't you trust women as much as men to deal with a big budget? And leadership is still connected with men. I don't understand why.
Yeah, maybe in relation to this, I also had a question, like if we compare animation with the general film industry and the position of animation and like the glory of animated film in comparison to feature film, like the rest of the film industry. I don't know, I mean, in my perception, there is still a larger percentage of women present in animation. And I'm wondering if we can draw a connection, parallels. For example, you have in literature, there are some genres that are perceived as more female genres. We have in theater, we have some genres where it's easier for women to get access to, I don't know, to do shows for children, to do puppet theater, where it's this hierarchy in a way. So my question for you would be, do you think that in relation to the film industry in general, we can talk about that there is a feminization of the animation and that it's impacting the economics of the field within the film industry?
I don't know. I know the students. I was studying in NSAD. I have many examples of short film directors that started at the same point as me, and more. The male short film director are no feature film directors, but no female. For example, so it's always a question of budget. Also, it's a smaller budget. I don't want to be too negative, but
I think it's not negative. We're just trying to realistically look at the picture, maybe.
Yeah. But there are several people several women now are preparing feature film. There are several in the tube. But when we want we don't have a competition for feature film at our festival because there wouldn't be enough feature film every year for make a competition. But some festivals make also a competition with 5 films, feature films. But yeah, so we couldn't make a competition. But there are several films in preparation now, I know.
No, but my question was in relation to
cinema, live action.
Yes, not only like animation as a field within film industry in general.
Well, I think, but I'm not sure because I don't remember exactly the numbers, but they made a more specific research about animation. The graphics were about cinema, and I don't think it's much better than
it's not
that live action.
In the big industry in the States, maybe Lutz knows better the numbers. There are almost no women who has been trusted to make a feature film. There were 3 or 4 feature films in the last years only.
So when I was working for the French Animation School Network, I made some researches and some numbers research about like how many women were in animation French film schools. So it was really like in balance, like even in CGI schools or even like in more artistic schools, we were like having almost like 50% of women studying there. Then it was almost equal when it was women helping by the CNC for like having their films fundings. So I was like really happy to see that, and at this moment it was maybe in 2015, I guess. You only have like two women who have been directed feature films, but always co-directed with men. So it was Persepolis and I forget the name of this CGI film with little insects, Minuscule. So that was like the two films co-directed by women at this time in France. But then now we also have The Swallow of Kabul and Marona, but it's Onkadamian, she's Romanian, but she has been produced by France, so yeah, two films directed by women now in the industry. And I think I wanted to add something about the numbers. Oh yeah, and why there is more women, I think this is my point of view in the animation short film industry, is because it's a small team that you have to manage. And I think if you're going to the live action part, even in short films, it's unbalanced because, yeah, how can you manage a team if you are a woman or like you have more pressure and people trust less you and stuff like that.
It gets more, the hierarchies are more important in the feature film. They're more who is the boss. So I know from some directresses that's not so easy to be accepted in this huge production. But I think it's much more important to change the narrative also for the society. Really, as I said in my talk, to put female characters in the stories, to tell it from a female point of view, and to present women in other roles, not so that they can study architecture and that how it's their daily life and what they have to deal with, and that this and to prove that these are interesting stories. And as I said, most of the decisions of the daily decisions are made by women. Maybe not which car is bought, but maybe also a lot of decisions are made by women in daily life. And there, of course, there's a market and really change
the content, not just to pay attention to the balance in gender, but also to pay attention to the content. That's also maybe like related.
How you show a situation at home. Maybe you think a little bit that also the father is washing the dishes and all this, to all these little things. I think you can make a change with film. Also, when we show the films about domestic violence and all this, some people that have made this experience, they feel strengthened, that there are solutions. You can go somewhere, inform about institutions. So that's these more heavy topics, but also the small things that in the children films, the girls are also very active and not only play with the puppets, that they can do the same things.
To question the stereotypes in the society from an early age, from like...
I think this is more important for changement in the society, to make women more self-confident to speak out, and that's normal. You think it's already normal, but when I watch the films that are in the cinemas, as we have seen, how many have female main characters, and it's really low to be a speaking character, just to say one word. That's really shocking.
It's a very low standard.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I had another topic I wanted to maybe dive in. It's not. It's like maybe looking. We already started a bit looking a bit beyond numbers, but to compare, maybe like we were talking a bit about the production context and like the management of the team, the trust of the team, but maybe also to talk about. Do you think there's a difference in discourse used when talking about male and female authors, like in terms of evaluating the project, giving more trust, looking from a different perspective? Does the gender play a role in decision making about who gets the fund, who gets the awards? And does this reflect not only in numbers, but also in the discourse that is used? I mean, for example, if you compare, I don't know, when you apply for funding, we try to get funds, and the argument that you get as a woman, and if you compare it with your male colleagues. Because I know, for example, that in Slovenia there is like, if you have an opportunity to hear the discussion about the projects made by male and women, the tone, the arguments used are very different. So.
Yeah, in a way, I mean, that's true, but it's quite complicated, and it's in a way wrong to put it that way, because the world is quite divided and different, and problems are different in different countries. If you just go through Europe, something that could happen in one country is completely different than the other one. But I don't know. Yeah, it's a very tricky question. But I would start with an anecdote about the numbers, actually, because if you really want to address that issue seriously, and if you really have to fight for the equality, and if you really want to achieve a number of, I don't know, female directors and this and that, I think we all have to be super careful about the strategy. Because once, I don't want to name a film festival, yeah, but I had a great experience that festival. It was a big one. That festival was so proud by a 50-50 idea that in next few years they will have equal number of male and female directors. And then they invited me to obligatory female red carpet. And all the actresses and so on were wearing high heels and shiny dresses and started to run on the red carpet for a photo shooting, and I was in a back row. So if we are thinking about statistics, of course we have to do it, and I promise that I will do in my country as soon as I come back home. But we have to discuss it pretty much in a political context, which is very tricky. And I think that the biggest concern right now, let's say I'm mostly familiar with European context, is that something is achieved in a way, and that in mostly funding bodies and so on, of course, there are still some people thinking about, oh, you are a female, oh, you are so cute, you have so nice puppets and nice project and so on. But I think they are getting older and older, so they will die pretty soon. That's what I'm looking for. So it would come in a way natural. And then we also have quite a lot of female students, and I don't know, I guess in almost all European countries there are at least more than 50% of female students and so on. And of course, we have that intention that while we are choosing and selecting programs and so on, of course, we have to think not just about the film, but what is very crucial and what we discussed quite a lot during being a jury, to discuss the perspective. But what's actually really going on right now is that we have, in a way, a political problem, which is general. And it is the situation is have a tendency that it is slightly going backward by a radical nationalist and right-wing, and you just have in mind what happens, for example, in Poland and this and that. So it's very, very important to calculate it as well and to think about society we live in. And for me, the best possible way, if we have to be practical on that issue, is the only way to stop that tendency that civilization is going backward is on a very small scale levels. For example, you have a film festival, and you have to have there a great educational program for kids and for young people where they will discuss feminist issues, but not as some general philosophy, but through a practical work. And then to work with their parents and so on. And that's the only way to stop that fact that probably, 10 years or 20 years, we will have really in some funding body somebody who will say, no, it's a female project. No, we are not supporting it. But the future is bright, yeah.
Marie, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I hope we'll get some great role models and I can inspire young generation, because I started animation because of Caroline Leaf and also and Frédéric Bach too. But yeah, so yeah.
Okay, it's quite. We spent quite a lot of time already, but I just wanted to maybe, Anna, sort of, you gave us the cue for okay, we have to be practical. So let's finish with what, in your opinion, is like the first and the practical things. I would like to hear from each of you. Like, what is the agenda of feminism and fight for gender equality in animation? Is it like canonization, like like making a database where the records of work done by women? Is it the content, the role models? Is it making a festival a safe space for everybody who's coming to make like a good equal atmosphere where everybody feels safe? Is it what do you think is like the first practical step in the agenda when we talk about?
Let's start the revolution right now. Yeah. Well, so a few suggestions for a revolution. I mean, few weeks ago I had a really interesting workshop with young people in Maribor about definition of feminism. And we found common ground in a way that if we have to think about it now, it is not about making some previous mistakes about exclusion, but that the feminism nowadays definitely, and it only should be only about the equality, the word of equality. So if I might add a few practical suggestions for this cuter revolution. First of all is that I think that we have to, as people involved in animation in many different ways, the first thing we have to do is to go outside the bubble. Because what we are actually doing, we are traveling around and enjoying films and drinking and going to the parties and having really nice discussions, which is, of course, important, which is a necessary first step, and we have to continue and to have more of it. But I think really each of us have to be aware that outside of our bubble there is a real world, and to think how to organize some programs, some screening, some this and that, because I mean, I really think that nowadays where we have so many documentary images and people got used to it, we could go outside of the bubble and by using animation both as a film or a workshop or a matter of discussion to start some real discussions. Yeah.
I'm convinced that we make a little change with film. And I think animation is the best way, because you can really give a strong message in 5 or 10 minutes, and it's not reduced, so because you have to work on so many levels. And my experience, it works. And in all the contexts we are presenting the films, people are really happy having this material for a basis to go in a discussion. And I don't want to say that we only screen this problematic stuff, also these feel-good films and all this also.
Keeping the balance.
Yeah. And my experience is wherever we go, the emotions are high. As soon as we say the focus is on animated films made by women, we have intense discussions. And I think as long as all the emotions are so high and emotional, and you get strong comments, that's not necessary, and men feel excluded or things like this. It's always really a lot of emotions are coming up. It's a topic that is not finished, so that's yeah. So I'm still convinced that our focus is necessary.
I don't know. I have a friend, for example, who never buy any book of history of animation. She always looks at the index, and if it's less than 30% of women, then she don't buy it. Maybe we can do so, like boycott. We are a buying force. So.
Any last thoughts from the audience?
No, I have to go. You know how it was.